everyone, back with here with some more One Tree Hill talk on the Filmaholic channel. Today I'm talking about episodes 19 and 20 of season 7. So 19 is Every Picture Tells a Story. The episode originally aired April 26, 2010, was directed by Chad Graves and written by William H. Brown. So this episode is mainly about Quinn's gallery opening, right? So her mom, before she passed away, she paid for the space for Quinn to have to open up a gallery for, I think it was a month lease, or a couple months at least, whatever it was. It's only in this episode. In the next episode, by the end of season 7, she doesn't have the space anymore, which I think should have continued into season 8, but it didn't. So, she has this gallery open in this episode. Everybody shows up to it. A whole big thing of that. We continue with the Katie storyline, which I've said I don't like. It continues in this one. Clay hasn't told Quinn anything about it yet. Katie shows up, and he doesn't tell Quinn about it in this episode until the end of the episode. So after the whole meeting and everything at the place where Katie buys the picture of Clay, and she's being really creepy and all this. So that happens. Clay talks to her there and tells her pretty much, like, stay away. You know, I told you I'm not representing you. Why do you think it's a good idea to come here? And at the end of the episode, Clay does have a discussion with Quinn and shows her the picture, and she's like, why do you have a picture of Katie? He says, it's not Katie, it's Sarah. So it sets up that even further, bringing Quinn into the mix of this psycho storyline that's going to continue for another half a season for some reason. We also have more of the Josh and Alex stuff. Now, in the end of the last episode, they ended up having sex, and we know that he turned on the laptop to film a sex tape between them. Well, that's gotten out in this episode, and the plan was for him to leak that so people wouldn't think he was gay. So that was part of the storyline with this here at the end of the season, is the Josh character is gay, and Alex finds that out in the next episode when she ends up talking to Julian about it, and she connects the dots, but she doesn't know that here, and I just think it was just another kind of bad storyline, like, and further goes back to, Anna in season 2 of, that representation in the show wasn't ever there in the best way. I feel like they could have done something really special with Anna's character in season 2 and kept her in the show, but they didn't, and they bring him in, and I don't think they handle it that well, but they have that sex tape that's brought in here in this moment, and I just don't really care for it, but the person who does threaten to leak it, the plan was to leak it, and his friend who was helping him out has now demanded $1 million to not leak it from the studio, which this film only cost, I think, $2 million to make, so now it's putting them at $3 million because Paul's like, hey, he wants to go ahead and leak it, but now that Julian is so protective for Alex and Brooke's support now, they're going to pay the other $1 million and invest it in the film so that this tape doesn't get out to hurt Alex. And as far as this episode goes, Miranda finds out too in this episode that she's being deported. Once again, another thing in the show that I feel like I've seen a lot in other things that kind of was lazy. I mean, she's British and she's being deported, and I'm just I don't know. But anyways, they put that in there, and I kind of like the Grubbs and Miranda storyline. I wish they could continue that into season 8 instead of some of the things we get in season 8. But that started in this episode, her being deported, and her, eventually going to leave the show, and Grubbs trying to propose to her to keep her to stay, because he's a citizen. If she marries him, she won't have to leave. But that continues into the next episode of whether or not she's going to agree to his proposal or not. Lauren tells Skills in this episode, because remember, he came back in the last one that she's falling for somebody else. So Skills gets drunk at the art gallery. Chase comes back and he's the bartender. Luckily, he's not making any mixed drinks. It's just shots and beer. But Skills gets drunk, and he's trying to figure out who it is that Lauren is now with, and he sees her with Mouth and realizes it's Mouth. So he goes over and confronts him, ends up punching Mouth out, which then falls and hits the curtain and reveals Victoria and Alexander behind the curtain. And lets Brooke know that Victoria and Alexander have a relationship now, which then takes us into the next episode, before I forget about it, because I didn't write it down because it's not a big thing, but in the next episode they do make a thing where the media thinks it's Brooke and Alexander and not Victoria, and then she has to go and tell the paparazzi and the news outlets that it's actually Victoria with Alexander, their model, or their designer. So that happens. We also have Haley, who takes the pregnancy test in this episode, ends up telling Nathan at the end of the episode when he says, he wants to have more kids, that she took the test and she's not pregnant. But, of course, she had to have lied to him here because she would have been pregnant in the timeline in terms of, she is pregnant at the end of the season. So she would have found out that she is pregnant at this point, and, her depression has already started and everything dealing with her mom. But she hides it the best in this episode compared to the next episodes. She's trying not to really let anyone know about the sadness that she's carrying around. And then we kind of get a sense of that at the end of the episode when she calls her mom and she's talking to her mom, to her mom's old phone, which will carry over into the next few episodes as well. That's all pretty much about this episode, except for the really cringe-worthy scenes with Nathan and Jamie. Man, they play Rock Band, which is fine. Like, I don't mind that. But then they take it so far that they end up painting their faces like the band Kiss. And then further than that, they start doing like this musical, like it looked like a music video to kind of how they were trying to direct it, where Nathan and Jamie are like walking around the house dressed as Kiss. They're not even playing Rock Band anymore. The TV's off at this point. You see, it's not even on in the background. They're just walking around the instruments pretending to be Kiss. It was awful. I don't know who came up with that idea, but they should have been, I would have had them escorted off the fucking set. Like, it was awful. And it's one of the things where there's a couple moments in season 7 and 8 where it's like, how did this get made? Like, who thought this was a good idea? Because it's awful. And it just really takes you out of the show, too, to me, and at least in my opinion. I know some people watched it and they enjoyed it. And the superhero episode in season 8, which is my least favorite episode of the series, I think it's just awful how it was executed as far as, the scene where they come out dressed as a superhero. If you liked it, good, I'm happy, but it's just, it does not fit with the tone of the show. And it really takes me out of it every time. But that's this episode. Not bad, but has some really bad stuff in it, like the cringeworthy Nathan and Jamie scenes, the Katie stuff, which I said should not have even been in the show in the first place. It's just like different things that you could have brought into the show to make it better, and then this is kind of lazy writing, I feel like, at this point. The next episode, 720, Learning to Fall, came out May 3rd, 2010. It was directed by Greg Prange. It continues Haley's struggle with Lydia's death in this episode. She leads Set, which at this point, if I was them, as far as the label goes, yeah, definitely shutting this label down. Like, I know Haley's going through some stuff, but they really kept this open because of her, and then she just walks off set, costs them so much more money. It's crazy, but anyways, that happens. They call Nathan and let him know of the situation, so he gets concerned. She also gets mad at Jamie, and he's confused of what's happening. Alex tells Julian she sees Josh in the elevator with another guy. She tells Julian about the situation, and then Julian obviously confronts Josh because he connects the dots and realizes that Josh is probably the one that's blackmailing them. And then Alex and Paul have a discussion, which ends up leading Paul to releasing the sex tape for the sake of the film. Which Julian gets mad about at first because he doesn't realize that Alex came up with the idea herself. Mouth and Lauren decide to end things for Skills, that their friendship is too important to Mouth for it to be ruined by a romantic relationship after all of these years that they've been friends. And then he tries to better things with Skills and has Skills in his place. And then Katie's behavior continues to get worse in this episode. She shows up, breaks Clay's picture at the art gallery. We have those scenes, kind of not very good. And the episode ends with Haley setting the piano on fire, and Nathan running over to help her. And I can't remember, honestly, because it's been a little bit, because we got ahead. If it was this episode or the next episode that Nathan really starts to, it might be the next one actually, connect the dots of the phone situation, looking over the phone bills, and realizing that Haley, I'm pretty sure it's this episode, but maybe not. It might be the next one. That Nathan looks over the phone bills and realizes that Haley's been calling her mom's cell phone, and talks to Quinn of, hey, where's your mom's cell phone? It's at the art gallery. They go look at it and then figure out that Haley has been calling. Yeah, I feel like it would have to be this one. I feel like it would be this one, because in the next episode she's already talking to somebody. But that her mom and everything, like, she's been talking to the phone, and they confront Haley. Well, he's going to confront Haley about it, and then he finds that she's set the piano on fire, and that leads us in the next episode, which I'll go ahead and talk about this video too, because I'm not, I've got a little time here. That's 721, What's in the Ground Belongs to You. And this is the episode before the finale of season 7, and it's came out May 10th, 2010, was directed by Peter B. Kwasowski, who's a cinematographer of the show as well, and it was written by Mark Schwann, the creator of the show. So the title, What's in the Ground Belongs to You, refers to the treasure hunt that's going on in this episode, which I actually kind of liked, with Quinn and Jamie, and focus on their relationship, which I think is important to focus on their relationship because of this, what's going to happen at the end of the next episode and taking us into season 8 with Quinn being shot. But there's a treasure hunt. Quinn makes one for Jamie, and they go on it throughout the episode. Haley, like I said, she's seen a therapist in this episode after she set the piano on fire, and the phone stuff, which I believe the therapist is Greg Prange, the director and producer of the show. I think he steps in and does the talking for the therapist. And then Haley spends the day with Nathan, and he's trying to just be with her, be there for her and try to help her out of this place. They end up getting the car towed because she gets out of the car in the middle of traffic. He ends up they open the Cracker Jack box at their spot at the river walk. We have all that. Katie, she takes it even more further at her craziness, and she tries to become Sarah. She dresses like her, dyes her hair. She breaks into Clay's beach house and is there with grape Kool-Aid. He ends up having to throw her out, and the next thing he knows, he gets a call from the police, and she's on the pier. And this is filmed at Riceville Beach. The rest of the Clay stuff is filmed at Topsail Beach, but this is filmed at Riceville, this scene. And he goes there, and once again, TV, it tries to fool you that he's I guess he likes her or something. I don't know what they were trying to fool the audience, but he tells the cop that that's his wife. And he has a scene with her on the edge of the pier where he's trying to talk her back in, and he finally convinces her that he believes that she's Sarah and all this. And then after that happens, they grab her, and he lets the act down and says, it's going to be okay, Katie. You're not Sarah. You need to stop this. And they arrest her, or you think they arrest her. And then he talks to the cop and tells the cop the situation, that he would like to have his stuff back that she's stolen out of his house. Which I don't know, it was shot well, but it seems a little bit odd too. I would have probably had that scene, I would have probably put it on a hotel, filmed that at a hotel or something where she was on a balcony going to jump off. Because it was on the pier, and I know it works in the show, but she could have jumped and they would have just had a boat or something down there. She wouldn't have died. So I don't know. Just I think I would have filmed it a little bit differently. Maybe had them on a balcony or the top of a building or something, versus the edge of a pier. I don't. Maybe that was supposed to go along with how they first met in the water, and I don't know. Overall, I don't love the storyline. So, but that does happen. And then too, when he's talking to the cop, he sees the balloon, which goes back to the treasure hunt, which Jamie decides to leave that stuff in the ground because he thinks somebody. They watched the Goonies, and that's when he got him into this treasure thing. He decides someone else needs a treasure more than him, but he doesn't want to take the gold star because he wants to give it to Haley. But they end up letting that balloon go, and for somehow it gets across Tree Hill to the ocean, and Clay sees it. A little crazy. Mia breaks up with Chase in this episode. She actually broke up with him over text, so he's dealing with that in the episode, and then she shows up. Don't know why she didn't just wait till she got there, but whatever. And then they have one scene I do like, Mia and Chase. It's outside them talking about the breakup, which it's a fine scene in general, but I like that we get to see where they are outside a Trick. It's where you enter in at the back of Trick, but they're in front of the little box building that comes out, and we don't have a lot of scenes here. We've had a few shots there before with Peyton up there crying in season 2 and whatnot, but we don't have a lot up there, and I really like that they filmed that scene there. And then Julian shows Brooke his film in this episode, and then they wait on the phone call, which he gets at the end of the episode to let him know that the film will be in the film festival in Utah, which they'll go to in the next episode of the finale. Victoria, she goes back to New York, kind of wraps up her storyline. I wonder, at this point when they wrapped up her storyline and they were sending her back to New York, I'm assuming they didn't know what they were going to do with her in season 8. And just kind of goes further to show, and I know a lot of shows, I don't want to be this is the only one that didn't know what they were going to do in the next season. Sure, like there's a lot of shows that probably you don't know what you're going to do in the next season at this point, but it just goes to some of my complaints, but I'll talk about when we get into season 8 of them not really knowing what to do with season 8 and them needing some fresh ideas, I feel like, in the writers group for season 8 and 9, because they kind of take it back to, their excuse was taking things back to the basics in season 8, and it was, I don't like it, and we'll talk about it, but I don't think didn't know at all what they were going to do with Brooke's company and Victoria and stuff at this point, because they kind of end things really well with her and Victoria, and she's going to go back to New York, and you know, Alexander wants to go with her, but then Victoria's like kind of afraid to commit type thing, and says, hey, he needs to be a designer, he doesn't need to run it, you know, you need to do things the best of the decision, not based off what you think I want, which is nice. And then the end of the episode, Haley jumps into the pool, right? We get that big moment where she jumps into the pool, which, by the way, that pool was on the sound stage. It's not at the actual location of the house. So that in season 7, we do at the beginning of the season see them at the actual pool with Jamie's birthday and everything. But by the end of the season, when she jumps into the pool, they had actually built that on set. When I went toward the set, and several times I got to see this pool that they actually built on set, because at this point, when they filmed this was in March, and it was really cold outside. You did not want, you know, Haley or Beth and Joy Lynn's having to jump into an outdoor pool in Wilmington at this time. So they did it outside, at Screen Gym Studios, and that's how this episode ends, which just takes us into the finale, which I'll be talking about soon, and that is 7:22, Almost Everything I Wish I Said the Last Time I Saw You, which is a Wakey Wakey song, so I'm excited to talk about that. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys next time.